Hello, and welcome to all of you to our AI ethics, responsibilities, and governance. And my voice is just now kind of kicking in. It's been kind of hoarse, and hopefully I'll be able to keep it up through the rest of this. So we're delighted to have you with us today, and I definitely apologizes for delays in this. Again, it's been my health for the most part. And thank you for sponsoring SoftEd, sponsoring this, and to David, and definitely to Laura for her help this morning. As we talk about an overview of what we're going to discuss today, I want to really, and more I thought about it, the more I realized that we really need to get into what are the limitations of AI. And I'll share with you a little bit of that as we go on. I want to talk about cost considerations. This certainly is not free. And I want to discuss some of the things that you might consider when you're thinking about implementing ethics and governance in part of it. And sometimes these are not options. These are things that you have to do. And I want to kind of get into a little bit of the SoftEd group is really into project management and to business processes and and agile and many of the things that we need to implement something in an AI project plan. So I wanted to cover in some generalities as to what that would look like, and then and of course then the need for all of these things: transparency, fairness, and governance, and we'll go through them one by one. And then we certainly want to uphold our individual rights and prevent harm. And so we'll discuss some of the ways that those things happen in the real world and through different applications. So let's start off by talking a little bit about limitations of AI. I think it's interesting. I think it's almost hilarious that for a while, even before I started this, I said, people really need to know that Chat GPT is not perfect. And so I was on it the other day, especially as I'm trying to make this. And so in the interest of transparency, this has all been created through Chat GPT 4.4 as a framework. And then I have added to this. Okay. So I think it's very funny that one of the fundamental things about chat is that we all think that it's perfect, especially students, by the way, in school. So they think it's perfect. And down at the very bottom now, in very small letters at the very bottom now of ChatGPT, when you go online specifically to OpenAI, it says this. It says ChatGPT can make mistakes. Really? And then it says consider checking important information. Well, this is the disclaimer, isn't it? But it's a very important disclaimer because they want to keep of people using it for making critical decisions and blaming ChatGPT. When we'll look back on this too, and we'll see what those kind of issues are. So first of all, we have to understand that ChatGPT, and as well as all basis. So we discussed this in machine learning last webinar. They all have a basis. The medical basis, they have a materials basis, they have previous previous information on materials, right? So all of these have a basis. Learn what that is. What is the cutoff? Currently, Chat GPT-4, right, is April 2023. If you're using 3.5, it was based on somewhere around Q4 2021. So, these all have some limitations, right? So it has a knowledge cutoff. It also can't browse the internet in real time. Well, that may not be important for you for doing things like healthcare, but it's probably important to you when you want to look at real-time comments. Right? You can't browse the internet, can't associate that with other things, right? Its responses are based on patterns learned from training data. Think about it as another person that person is a person. It's got biases, it's got training, it's got information, and it's learned, and it's going to regurgitate that information. Now, even though that it appears intelligent, right? Again, it's subjective. It's subjective, and so we can't really dictate what's going to come out of it. We really don't know. Sometimes it's even more um, um, non-subjective, more qualitative than subjective, and we're kind of, oh, I didn't even think of it that way, and that's one of the advantages, by the way, of AI. It can't do really complex problem solving. It can't do multiple iterative, even though, by the way, interestingly enough, it's extremely complicated. It does iterative processing. It says it can't do complex problem solving. Well, maybe so, maybe so. Here's the real key though, and things that it tells us that it can't do. It cannot do emotional. It does not have any emotional and social intelligence, and so it literally cannot be biased. Can't. It's impossible because it doesn't have any kind of understanding of social dynamics. So in a way, and I'll point this out again later on, right? In a way, AI is less biased than humans. Whoa, okay. So, maybe we're trying to fix something that we shouldn't fix, but it is, right? So the other thing is it can't make ethical judgments. Well, here you go again. Again, less biased than humans would be. So think about this, right? It doesn't have personal opinions. Can't make ethical judgments, right? There's always a possibility of errors, and I just read their disclaimer, right? And then it doesn't remember past interactions. Well, it does kind of. So it does have some limited contextual understanding, but it's limited to the conversation. So if you notice usually on the left-hand side of an open AI thing, it tells you start a new conversation, start a new context, because you can ask contextual based upon that limited conversation, kind of like walking away and then coming back and starting a new conversation with somebody. Cost, and this is again one of those things that kind of bugged me initially, that we have we'd be able to talk about this and talk about and not to be able to talk about cost, because cost is very important, especially in a corporate environment. Excuse me. And and so it might be non-trivial. And again, we would all like to think that ethics would be no cost, and it can be sometimes, right? But some things to consider if you are going to do an ethics-based AI. One of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make a copy of it, because you're going to have to be able to control the inputs and outputs, the control access. You're going to have to be able to sanitize, if you will, right, the inputs and outputs from AI. If you're going to embed it right into something that you already have, Microsoft's doing some of that, and I personally know of somebody who's working on projects for Amazon and Google, right, are talking about edge computing. Now we see this, by the way, if you've got Windows 11 and you've got some of the 365 applications from Microsoft, you see this in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little Bing symbol, and you touch on that, and you get chat, what looks like chat, but it's not, right? It's Microsoft's version of that. And again, they're trying to control that access. And again, in a corporation, if you're going to incorporate it into some internal projects, you may have to do that same thing. And so, so one of the things that you might want to look at is, what model are you going to capture in order to do this, and what's the complexity of it, and that's definitely going to impact how many dollars you're going to have to spend. In some cases, corporations have bought other corporations just for that, and I touched on that back in the previous webinar. So if you haven't seen that, you can go back and look at that. then you're going to have to spend money customizing it and training it. Again, if it's edge computing and you want it to say certain things, or you want it to watch that it doesn't say certain things, you're going to have that licensing, and it could be by could be by seat, or it could be just licensing for the whole thing, and depending upon your negotiating skills with them, maintenance and updates. And here we see ChatGPT is already updated as of 2023, right? April. And again, I'm sure they're going to update again. And it's just like hardware, software of all vintages, right? Constantly updating. And we have to pay for that, right? Hardware, if you're going to have a separate edge computing where you're going to go to that data store, you have to have the entire internet, if that's what you're looking at, and pulling it in right to that particular area. You're going to have a data storage, and you're going to have internet data storage and data manipulation. And again, that's costly, right? Support. Somebody's going to when they say fix it, right? There's some issue with it. Somebody's got to fix it. Who is that? And they have to have an entire team for that. So somebody asked, is chat 3.4 4.4, and it's 4.0 was the one that I looked at, by the way. So the 3.5 version, and I looked this up early this morning too. It looked like the 3.5 version was Q4 2021, but that it's had some updates since then. So again, negotiating with OpenAI, which one are you going to purchase, right? It can be thousands, it could be millions, right? Could be millions. All right. So what would one of these projects look like? Well, assessment and scope, just like any other project, right? You have to look at, what is the scope of it. And in situations today, many of them are going to be embedded into existing projects. So while you're doing your project management, you're doing your business modeling, in your business assessment, right? You'll have to look at how does it impact them, and where are the particular issue where are the particular issues going to be for monitoring and for opening and shutting the ethics gate. I just made that up. That sounds like a good idea, right? So you're going to have some gate that allows things in and out, and that are going to be checked, right? Ethically checked, right? But the next thing that you're going to have to say is it a project that already has some regulation issues? A good one is healthcare, right? And does it have HIPAA? If it's healthcare involved, HIPAA is always involved somehow, right? And you're going to make sure that all of those gates are open or closed, right? For making sure you don't have ethical violations. Is the tagging of the data, is it secure? Is it private? And does it follow all the regulations necessary for that? If it doesn't, then you're in new ground, you're in new territory, and you're going to have to find out what are those things that you need. What are the current definitions? And then this is the really sticking point for lots of projects is their HR has regulations, right? Your legal staff has regulations, right? Governing bodies, not necessarily in your organization, but you might have some local ones that are regulations that you didn't even know about, right? My HOA doesn't allow me for my garbage can to be seen from the road, because evidently that's a problem. But so all of these issues, right? So identify areas in your project, usually inputs or outputs now, that need to have human oversight. So again, the gate, right? Where's the gate? Who's going to monitor that? How much is it going to cost, right? And get corporate funding to implement that. You you may come up with this grandiose plan. Oh, we need to do this and do this and this. And take it to corporate, and they'll go, "What? How much is this going to cost? How much is this going to get us?" Now, and this is where again being savvy is going to be important here. Okay, you're going to have to be able to quantify that cost. And the way to quantify it is with risk. And remember, the risk here is legal, right? So you're going to get sued, right, because of something happened ethically, right? They might even take your whole business down. You're looking at public relations, right? Things like that. Those are issues, those are risks that you need to quantify. Sometimes they're not easy to quantify, right? But it's certainly one of those things where you have to look at in a corporation, right? Which is what is the cost of not doing it? What's going to happen, right? So the other part is measurement, and as you are finally implementing these, right? You may find the gatekeeper says, "Oh, I found this, and I found this, and I found this, and if I had let that go, this would have cost us X number of dollars," right? Those are always good reasonability to have staff, right? And you're going to have to be able to show that. Just being able to say, well, uh, yeah, we got to have it. Yeah, it's not going to fly. So be able to handle those when you're talking about projects. Very important. Be able to say, well, maybe I can do with 10 people. I don't need to do 20 people. All right, let's get into then to the individual, and I'm going to walk through these one at a time, which are really so we've done about 30 minutes of the basics. So let's talk about now the individual pieces, and hopefully I can do this in 15 minutes or so. But the things that come up, the words that come up, and how we address those in AA. So the first one comes up is transparency. Well, interestingly enough, whoops, what did I do? I use my scroll, which is not good. Okay, so let's talk about transparency. So transparency is a word that says, it's open, right? So we're going to show everything. We're going to lay all the cards on the table. Well, unfortunately, deep learning is not something that a layperson can really understand. It's layers of layers, right? So we're talking about something that I've got a degree in math and a degree in electrical engineering. So, for me to understand it is tough, right? Let alone for someone who is a layperson. And only about 10% of the people in the country can actually understand how this works. It's tough to be transparent, isn't it? It just is not easy. Excuse me. So, so one of the issues we have is being able to be completely transparent about how AI is coming up with, right, something that is unethical. I maintain that it's easier for us to mess it up than it is for AI to mess it up and to have an unethical discussion or unethical things. There are some places, so let's talk about those, right? We can disclose. This I love this. Disclose our potential bias. So here again, this chat can make mistakes and consider checking important information. So they already put a disclaimer there. CPAs know this, right? Anytime you see a CPA report, they have what they call the dagger, right? The dagger says, look down below. There's a, this is the right number, except, and then it goes on, right? Disclaimer. And these are very important here because in many cases, we're not even going to be able to identify where or when. So we kind of have to be open about this. Don't be afraid of the disclaimer. Don't be afraid of the piece of paper, right? That you say, yeah, but I told you this was not going to be, da, da, da. So very important for you to understand that for transparency. Uh, you can strive for being transparent in an AI development all you want. The issues that we see is that depending upon your organization, organizations, if they're privately held, oftentimes they're privately held for a reason because they don't want everybody to know what they're doing. And you can't force them to do that. If they are publicly held, so my corporation is a publicly held corporation, I'm required to disclose every quarter, right, what my financials are. I'm required to disclose if in fact I sold off a bunch of stock, or if I bought a bunch of stock, or whatever the case be, or my salary changes. I'm required to disclose that. That's transparency, right? There are some things though in the corporate environment where you're not you don't want to disclose it, and one of them is legal. Oftentimes we see even in public environments where they say, well, the council will have to has to retire to discuss a legal matter, which is not open to the public. And corporations have a lot of this business confidential. So thinking about business confidential, I mean, you could leak that through your AI development and not even know it. Again, I'm reminding of the time when I walked down the hall, and I happen to know, but obviously everybody else didn't know when they saw it, was there was a micrograph, which is the picture of the chip, right, of our proprietary chip that nobody knew, right? It's proprietary, and we've gone through tremendous amounts of secrecy to keep that secret, and here it was on the wall. Looked pretty, but nobody really knew it. But I looked at it and went, holy crap, and walked to the vice president's office. I said, get that picture off the wall. And he goes, why? And I said, because it's our secret. I'm hanging on the wall. And he goes, oh no, so it's interesting that, again, sometimes unknowingly we can have a situation where we can be transparent, almost too transparent, right? So yeah. So, and here's another interesting piece is that you may be required to do certain things by the government if you have a government contract. So pay attention to the fact that you may have government contracts which preclude and require you to have issues, right? Both legal as well as governance issues as a part of your AI project. All right, Title 7. Everybody know what Title 7 is? Right? Yeah, you do, because you've heard it on the news a million times, right? Prohibits discrimination categories. Now, these are the ones that are in Title 7: race, color, religion, sex, national origin. Interestingly enough, and I was told this by legal staff, right? Interestingly enough, the only one of that group that is not is variable is religion. People can change their religion, right? So you don't necessarily know that it's religion based, but the others are visual ones, or you can't change your national origin. So um, a reasonable accommodation. So there is reasonable accommodation for religion, and so it allows for religious observations or modifying work schedules. That shouldn't involve AI. Shouldn't. Harassment, unless your AI is harassing somebody, right? This shouldn't be an issue. Retaliation, again, unless your AI is doing retaliation. These are all HR typically, right? Gender based equal pay. Again, AI would be, if you don't tell it what the gender is, right? Then again, how can it be discriminatory? That's one of those HR things that they have to decide what they're going to do there. And then, enforcement and remedies from this, you can get EEOC regulations. See, Michael, how do we prevent an organization using AI in an intentionally based or harmful way? Think about attempting to influence elections, deepfakes, or maybe even one of terrorist administrative duty. That's interesting, Michael. And again, I don't see where using AI could do that. And I'd like to have a discussion with you offline on that. deepfakes, or even what a terrorist they might try to do. I don't
I
know.
could, yeah, I could speak
Yeah,
to that and give you a little
yeah,
bit of a
go.
breakdown. Michael, great question, and certainly I think is a very important concern, especially for 2024. We have an election coming up here in the US, and there's a number of generative AI tools out there like Midjourney, Dolly, which is embedded in ChatGPT now, which can create fake images and make it very realistic. That videos can be created that look like important figures doing certain things that they never did. The same thing with voice. I mean, it only takes 3 seconds or so of a recording of someone's voice in order to create an AI, a synthetic version of that person's voice to say whatever you want that voice to say. So we've already seen that happening in the political arena here. Unfortunately, it's already been used in political ads to create doomsday scenarios that look very realistic, but actually were AI generated. And as far as the government oversight piece, there was an executive order recently passed. The legislation to enforce it is not there, and the enforcement is a big topic of discussion and a big question mark. They are trying to lay the foundation of a framework of an ethical system that will kind of signal to these AI companies what will be expected. And some of those things involve things like watermarking, any kind of AI generated videos or photos. We're not there yet. We're currently in the Wild West phase of all this, where it remains to be seen where this will go in terms of enforcing any regulations that actually do get passed. So the other issue that comes up is that this technology evolves so quickly that it's very difficult for legislation to keep up with it. And not just that, but just for the legislators to even understand the technology is another big issue. So I think Kim's going to talk a little bit more about that later in his conversation.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
But this is why it's so important for all of us to educate ourselves as best we can, so that we can share with our friends and family and spread awareness of the capabilities of these tools. Because in the last 18 months, we've seen the ability to create very, very realistic images and videos and audios that is almost impossible for the average person to discern whether or not that's the actual person committing these acts that are depicted. And the awareness is low in the general public, and even in most organizations, even at executive levels, the awareness is still pretty low of these capabilities. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that question, but I'll turn it back over to you, Kim, to continue, because I think you had some points on a little later in your slides. But thank you,
Yeah,
Michael,
no.
for the question. We appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you very much, Laura. That was a good overview of that. And you're right. We're going to talk about that other issue here in just a second. So fairness, again, this is a definition, right? What does fairness mean, right? I won't go into my discussion with my children, but I told them I don't ever want them to use the word fair, because fair is unfair. But in all realistic capability, it's talking about equal opportunity or fair treatment or just outcomes. What is fair? Um, we really need to have some AI training, right? That doesn't have racial, gender, or age basis or confirmation basis. So we have to give everybody the opportunity to learn AI. And again, Softed is trying well through these webinars. I mean, they're free. We we provide some individual basis, and hopefully, I'm giving you a framework that you can use to deep dive into some of these subjects. But definitely, fairness is open to interpretation. Right? We have to be able to eliminate biases. And again, as I said, racial, gender, age, or confirmation, and ensure all fairness in AI applications. So we're going to talk more about the different applications that are involved and where they're used. Accountability, legally responsible. Uh-oh. Who's going to be responsible when things go bad? Who are we going to start looking after? Where is the buck stops here? You know, is the corporate executive going to say, well, I didn't know anything about it? You know, this is you, CTO. You know, it's your responsibility to make sure this happens. Are they going to take the responsibility? Or are they going to push it all the way down to the vendor? Here again, it's one of those situations where the process, right, not just for the decision, right, but then what's the mechanism, right, for that accountability? Who is going to be accountable? What's that process to determine accountability? Privacy, and here we go back with the HIPAA laws. So the HIPAA laws, specifically in healthcare, right, have to adhere to certain and very important privacy standards. So we got to stay with those standards, whatever they are. And in many cases, we have to have consent, right, when we collect data. And people have to know that if we collect data, generally, if as long as it's not tagged with their name on it, right, or data that can spiral down to finding out who they are, that we need that information to help others. And so that's where we need some informed consent and really for them to understand why we're asking for that. Once you have the collected data, you have to protect it. You can't just let anybody look at it. And again, the depends upon what data you're collecting. Now, if you're collecting individual information with their name and address and all the rest of the stuff, obviously that's all protected. Social security numbers, credit card numbers, all of that's protected. It should be protected. Much of that's not really related to AI in general, though, and so you can get a broad brush of data that you've collected that's useful that doesn't have to be individually tagged, but there's some information. Interestingly enough, information that's covered under Title VII. Yeah, yeah. Age is one of them, right? And so when we're trying to determine how old this person was that had this cancer, you know, we need that information. Sex may be a part of that. Race maybe not so much, but for certainly for sex and for age, those are pieces of information that may be helpful in diagnosis and diagnosis for other people too. All right, safety. Yeah. Didn't really think much about this as I was looking through this subject, trying to say, well, what am I going to say? Is it rigorous? So, yeah, the first thing is, did you do rigorous testing for your application? Okay. Give me a definition of rigorous. Well, anybody that's done quality assurance for software will tell you that it has to meet certain statistical information, has to meet a statistical reliability. It has to be a sample of so and so. Saw that on the news the other day, which I thought was interesting. Somebody said, "Well, this was not a statistically qualitative correct sampling." Really, they actually said that on the news. Oh, okay. So, but this is what happens to us, right? Is that if we're going to determine something that's rigorous testing, then we want to make sure that we um, have some testing statistical threshold, right, for reliability. So think about that as you're developing these, right? So in critical sectors, so now we're talking about mission critical processes. So let's see, what's a mission critical process that might use AI? Could be you got cancer. Oh, that could be mission critical, right? So what is our reliability for that? If you were to take that and somebody said, well, I'm going to sue you because you said I had it and I didn't have it, or I had it, or I didn't have it but I got it, or whatever, opposites. The that may go to court, and in court, what's going to hold up in court? What is rigorous? What did you do to make sure that it was reliable? This is a legal question. This is where legal staff needs to be involved, right? And you may involve data scientists, right, as a material witness. So in any of these things where you are doing AI, there should be data scientists on staff. It's just again, depending upon the size of the company. Right? All right. And then what are your standards that you're using? And again, disclaimers for covering. All right. Complement. AI is a complement. This I underlined, circled it on my notes here, big letters, right? It is a complement to human making decision. It should never be the decision came from AI, right? Should never be, right? It's always a complement. Outside opinions, right? So think of AI as another person, as an outside individual. Think of it as think of it as a consultant. That's what I do. I'm a consultant. Well, so why do people hire me? They hire me as an outside opinion, a third, right, party, or fourth or fifth or sixth. So think about AI as a complement. So say, well, what does AI say? And then take that with all the other opinions, all the human opinions, to make your decisions, right? Every AI output, right, needs some oversight. ChatGPT says it. They even say it, right? Please, please, please look at what you. I tell my nieces and nephews and cousins and everybody else. They say, well, what do you think about so and so? I said, well, I'm going to tell you, but don't take my opinion as the gospel. Right? Go check it out. Make sure that what I'm telling you is right. Don't ever take what I tell you as a gospel. So here, don't take what I tell you as the gospel. But it's good input, right? It's a consulting input. And some human roles, right? In those decisions, again, make sure you have humans looking at inputs and outputs. Governance, yeah. So Laura hit on a little bit the enforcement and regulations, government regulations. So the term governments kind of came to a head with Sarbanes-Oxley, and Sarbanes-Oxley was an early. Chat. Excuse me for just a second. So I get my notes here. Because I don't remember all of it, which I thought I had here. So there are guidelines for AI development. Define your legal responsibility, right? Look at your regulatory compliance. Look specifically for Title VII, right? And those regulations. So look on those. And then again, if you have healthcare needs, right? Looking for HIPAA, right? Excuse me. And then again, Sarbanes-Oxley. So there's the text that I was looking for. Nota bene. I love this. Nota bene. Note well, right? Sarbanes-Oxley Act of July 2002. We had consultants on staff, and I even own, I think, several domains, Sarbanes-Oxley consultants. I've got several. I got to look at those and get rid of them. But Sarbanes-Oxley Act of July 2002. It was meant because we had like Enron, if you remember Enron, right? And we had some other company, WorldCom, I think. And both of those were public disasters, and they blamed the government on us. The government says, "Well, we'll fix this. We'll put things into place." So Sarbanes and Oxley, the two senators who it's named after. right, came out with July 2002, and they said, well, we'll tell you what you need to do. And they put out all these regulations. And my wife right now spent years as an accountant, right, writing regulations and trying to maintain Sarbanes-Oxley within their corporation, which was a globally held. And so while all of that was going on, right, we recognized one important thing, and that's, well, in fact, there wasn't governments inside. There was a lot of old boys clubs that were working inside of boards. And so a lot of that has been broken up, thankfully, because of this. But in the end, what happened was there was no dollars to enforce this. And so Laura kind of hit on this, right, is that we have to be careful what kind of governance we ask for. We might get it, but then we can't regulate it because there's nothing there, right? So one of the things that I want you to pay attention to, and I'm going to go back up, I'm going to hide that for just a second. I want to talk about engagement and ethical and safety standards. In order for you to be a part of and not get caught in some of these things, you need to be involved. You need to be involved socially. You need to be involved governmentally, even if it's on a local level, but local, state, and federal level. You need to be involved, and so be engaged in these if you actually want to be able to manipulate, or not manipulate, because that's not the right word, but to be able to say, hey, that's not right. We need to do this, do that, and the other. Okay. So let's talk about some cases. And we're running towards our time frame here. So let me quickly run through a few of these. Some societal impacts, obviously through education, healthcare, we talked about earlier, recruitment and HR, criminal justice, banking and finances, autonomous vehicles. And I talked about some of these earlier on in the previous webinar. E-commerce, environmental conservation, insurance, right? Making sure that insurance is done. So you may be all involved in a lot of these interesting applications that are going to require AI, right? So public engagement, and again, please be aware, please be a part of discussions. Someone had placed in, there's something on the 19th. We have an interactive conference, generative AI for project professionals, right?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I'll talk about that just to make sure everyone is aware. Someone had asked if the participants here can unmic and have conversation, and that's not possible on this webinar platform that we currently are using. But on December 19th, we have a half-day virtual conference, and we do it in a Zoom meeting format so that all the participants can unmic and they can be on camera if they so choose. And that
I'll
way,
be there, by the way.
Oh, great, Kim. I'll be there as well. I'm one of the speakers, and we have a lineup of 9 speakers on various topics related to generative AI for project professionals, so project management, and very specific hands-on skills related to that line of work. And so today's the last day to get the Cyber Monday special. It's only $26, and you can earn 6 PDUs or CDUs if you're interested in doing that. We provide you the codes to submit so that you can get credit for those hours. And after midnight tonight, the price goes back to the regular price, I believe. But it's December 19th, and it'll be from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. And then whoever wants to stay afterwards and have an open forum and unmic and be on camera, talk with other people. We did this back in end of September. We had a great response. We had something like a 90 NPS score, and people were just really receptive to the information and wanting to network and wanting to ask questions. And so we decided to do another one And this one is going to be even better. It's going to be mostly new content. So if you joined us for the last one, just know that it's mostly new and great price. Can't beat it for 26 bucks, I don't think. So I'll post the link, or I think I already put it in the chat. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about AI Day that's coming up. We'd love to have you join us there. And we'll be digging into more hands-on skills, like doing some demos, doing some review of multiple tools that are used for project management, and of course be able to answer a lot more questions because it's such a huge topic. So it'd be nice to be able to spend a bit more time.
And I can't imagine not being there, by the way. The last one was so informative for me. It also told me a lot about what people didn't know, interestingly enough. So so that's a good. I wouldn't miss it. I really wouldn't. I told my wife, I says, look, don't expect me to be around on that day. I'm going to spend my entire time right there with Zoom. It was wonderful, really was. So let's talk a little bit more, and then we're going to close up here, right? Because we're almost at the mark anyhow. So as I discussed with you, be involved, right? Be involved in the public. Public's public awareness sometimes can be a problem because people like to they like to express their opinion, which in many cases it's more like them just letting off some steam or letting out some frustration. But you have to have that. You have to have let people to tell you, they're worried about this. I ask people all the time, what do you think about AI? I ask people that I don't even know standing in the line in Walmart or whatever, what do you think about AI? And I'm like, why do you want to know? but but it is funny. But again, people just want to express their opinion, and so it's very important for you to get other people's opinion on this, even though they may be somebody who just doesn't know anything about it. It's really, to me, really shocking how much people do not know about AI. Accountability, right, in actions, and so you will be held accountable if you're a part of this. Somewhere along the way, somebody's going to ask, "How did you come to that?" So make sure you keep a little. I keep a little diary of of what I do, so I can be able to go back. So final thoughts. Let's talk about what is the main takeaway of this. Look, um, I love this title, the balance, right, between innovation. Um, I was friends with, and I just happened to be friends with a guy by the name of David J. Powell. Uh, Dr. Powell had 4 master's degrees, doesn't matter, wrote 11 books. I just happened to be associated with him because of hobby. And Dr. Powell and I sat down one day. He did wrote 11 books and had 200 seminars a year. The guy was incredible. And I said, "Can you tell me what ethics is?" Because that's what he wrote on. That was his main topic. And he said, "Well," and he gave me a long story, which I won't repeat here, about some a manufacturing plant, and they were trying to do the right thing with the output of their affluence, right, and all this stuff. But it affected their employees, and they wanted to do the right thing by them, wanted to do the right thing by this, that. But all of these things weighed upon each other. So if you did this, then this happened, this and this. And he said, it's really about balance. It's really about negotiation, right? He said there is no perfect ethics. There is no perfect. You're under lock and key for your legal part. But other than that, yeah, it's a dilemma. Somebody said, right, and you're right. So it's not going to be easy to implement, right? And it's going to require a new group, right? It's going to require a new group. It's going to require an AI ethics compliance group. I don't know. It may require new procedures to be written, certainly, for sure, right? It may require some compromises, right? As we talked about this balance, right? Um, and the good news is that we may have some new, maybe some better right? Definitions of what these things mean. Now, I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts, and I think I've already mentioned that earlier, was that that while we want to think that AI is going to be a problem because it's going to bring up some ethical things, AI is not the problem. It's the human beings that are the problem. So in lots of cases, you're going to find that this may be an easier solution, just to let the AI determine what it is, right? Um, the what was the other thing I was thinking about? Oh, yeah, your definitions that you come up with. I know what it was. It was international. Don't forget that internationally, there are governances and raw laws, right, that are at purposes to each other. They don't match, and there's no way for you to regulate those. There's no way for you to make those up. So if you have international applications and you're internationally involved in this, God help you. I'm with you and feel for your pain. All right, questions? Yes.
This has been great, Kim. I encourage anyone to type any questions. We have a few more minutes. Love to hear thoughts, questions. Happy to respond to that. And even if you think of something later after the session, feel free to email me. I put my email in the chat. We're always glad to hear from people and give feedback. Give us feedback on this. Okay, Edith has raised your hand. Go ahead and put your question in the Q&A if you could, please, Edith. I don't think I can give you the ability to unmic, but if you type it in, that would be great. And then Kim, I'm going to just take over sharing the screen so that I can show you guys the generative AI day. Let's see, let me just share. Okay, so again, today's the last day if you want to get in on the Cyber Monday pricing, but we'll be giving 6 PDUs or CDUs, and we'll send you the code just like we do for these webinars. We send out the code afterwards so that you can claim your hour of credit. And for this event, it'll be 6 hours of credit. And you also get, anybody who registers gets a 25% off any SoftEd AI class for the
Me too.
For the upcoming year. So, you know, we've got AI for BA. That's our first AI course that we launched this fall. There's a few dates coming up. I think one in December, one in January, one in March. It's delivered over 3 days, and that's a half day. So I can send, if anyone's interested, just reach out. There's AI for BA, and then we'll also have AI for project managers as a course coming up in 2024, probably Q1. But for now, the next best bet is to join us for Gen AI Day for project professionals. You can see we've got a lineup of speakers, and we're going to be moving fast, going through all these 9 presentations, and you just use the code half off to get 50% off. Today's the last day though, so please do feel free to join us for that. We'd love to have you. Should be a great conversation. And let's see, did we have any other questions come through? I don't see any. Okay, we've got one from Michael. Given the exponential rate of technological change, it seems like we will have artificial general intelligence, AGI. So yes, great point. Sooner rather than later. Any thoughts about this? Feel free to skip me since I, well, no, we appreciate your question, Michael. And I think it's a great question to bring up AGI. And so if anyone's unfamiliar with this term, you'll probably be hearing more and more about it in 2024. It basically means advanced autonomous intelligence that is generally more intelligent than humans at most tasks. So what we have now, generative AI like ChatGPT, we're not quite there yet, although rumor has it that, oh, singularity is near. There's another term, singularity.
That's a good book if you're interested in that. There's another one by here's a good one. I love these books because I learn a lot about it. Is that
Like
backwards on your screen?
no, I can see it. It's regular.
Is it right way? Okay, because on my
It
screen it's
is.
backwards for whatever reason. A good one for AI superpowers, right? But for China, there's only by the way, there's only about 4 or 5 books on that particular subject. And what I'm looking for, Boswell. Wait a minute, this is a very important one. Or Bostrom, I'm sorry. Dr. Bostrom does AI intelligence in Oxford. He's a professor in Oxford, and this is actually a college text about AI that he does, and it's wonderful. It's like the back third or 2/3 of it is all references. So I mean, you could spend your life just chasing the references on this. This is also recommended by Bill Gates, right? So one of the reasons why I picked it up, and it's very intense. So if you're really interested in AI, especially generative AI, this is the book for you.
Great, thanks.
And then of course there's one more. It's my book.
Well, from what I hear, I don't know who's followed the Chat GPT / OpenAI saga over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of turbulence and chaos in the leadership, but
Yeah.
you can rest assured that they're working on things behind the scenes that are very advanced, and it seems to be a bit of a power struggle as to when to release what, and there's different opinions about when to release what. And it seems to be that in 2024, we're going to continue to see a lot of rapid change. And I think that's about the only certainty that we know. Uncertainty is the only certainty. So,
yeah. Or as Dave says, change is the only certainty, right? Yeah.
Right. But Edith is asking about the book titles. Yes, let me get those from Kim, and I will include them in the follow-up email for all you guys, and that way you can have the recording. It might give it a couple days sometimes to turn around the edited recording, but I'll include these book titles, and please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Someone said the half-off code is not working for AI Day. Just email me if you have any issues and you're not able to get that $26 price, and I'll make sure to honor that for you. My email, Lara, LARAH @softed.com.
Yeah, and I think when I tried it, it has to be all in caps, and there has to be no space in between it. So you have to, you have to be very, very specific.
Oh, okay. Well, please try that.
It's still programming.
Okay. My understanding is that it works until 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tonight. So
yeah,
November.
Yeah, I used it this morning, so I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention. And thank you, Kim, for presenting. Please feel free to give us feedback, reach out with any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you.